Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkeys Outdoors. Get all your hound hunting needs at conkeys.com. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game. Welcome back to another episode of Tree Talking Time. Just a quick reminder that Autumn Oaks is in a couple of weeks, and if you're planning on coming out, I'd love to see you. I will have a booth, be somewhere outside, I'm not exactly sure. I'll have some giveaways from my sponsors, Full Cry and Conkeys, so make sure to stop out and see me. Just as a reminder, though, even though I will have some shirts and hats at Autumn Oaks, if you're not planning on coming to Autumn Oaks, you can still find my shirts at W Hound Supply under their podcast and partners tab at the top of the page, so make sure to check those out if you aren't going to make it. And without further ado, here is Chuck and Adam Loudon.
Well, let me tell you a story about Bill, since we were talking about Bill, and I was already thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely.
But Bill was working at the dog pound, okay, at the time. And he called me and he said, "Adam, we've got a dog out here, a hound." And he said, "If you want, I'll get it and we'll take it hunting." I said, "Sure." So
how old were you?
I'm going to say 16, 17.
Okay.
So I went over to Bill's house, which I often did and coon hunted with him, but I never brought my own dogs except for occasionally I'd hunt Pepper with his dogs.
Okay.
But I usually just hunted with his hounds, and he had blue ticks and he had a walker too.
Okay.
So we went over there, or I went over there, and he had this big walker dog that he got from the pound. And we were
She was pretty.
Yeah, she's beautiful. And we were going to turn her loose down below his house with one of his blue dogs.
Nice.
We turned him loose. Blue dog goes down in there and strikes, and we're just talking, expecting nothing. Actually, kind of expecting to never see this dog again.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there talking, and all of a sudden she just gives this giant locate and just 120 bark a minute tree dog. And I'm telling you what, me and Bill, we laughed so hard. The blue dog ends up treeing with her. We go down there, find the coon. And I mean, we were laughing the whole way. It just, how you get this dog out of the dog pound and boom. And she'd been in there. She was due to be euthanized. That's why we took her out in the first place.
Yeah, nobody claimed her.
Yeah.
And anyway, Bill was fairly old at that time, so it was just a good memory of us walking down through that holler to go get her, and we get down there, and she looked as good as a coon dog could look.
Yeah.
And she never looked that good ever again. That was
one more treat when we went up there to Alton that night, because then they took her back, and you took me up to Alton and said, "You got to see this dog." Well, man, she flew in and treed. We saw a coon's tail hanging out of a hole. And then she ran something the rest of the night. We don't know what it was, and she never did do that much. But we named her Psycho because she was just like, she would lay in the box in the doghouse, just lay down there like she was 40 years old. And, man, as soon as you went to get her, she just went totally insane. I mean, you couldn't – she would go crazy going to the truck.
That was just one of those
so we called her
moments
Psycho.
with Bill, though, that I remember really well. And And he was one of my mentors, and I'd go over there, and we very rarely ever squirrel hunted. I can't think of maybe 2 or 3 times we squirrel hunted, and I just went over and coon hunted with him.
Yeah.
And I went over there one night or one afternoon. He wanted to see Apache, and I took him over there, and I can't remember. He had a little dog there that we turned loose to, and Apache just looked like $1 million. I mean, just absolutely was smoking them. I think we only hunted an hour, and Apache treed like 7 on the outside. And
nice.
I mean, he did it quick and did it right, and Bill was so impressed. And there's nothing better for me than going out with your mentor and your dog just looking like $1 million.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really fun day that I still remember about Bill. And
Bill always said he never saw a better squirrel dog in his life.
Yeah, that's what. After that day, he said never saw a better squirrel dog. And young me being a teenager, man, I was pumped up on that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's like no better compliment. Like you said, you're a teenager. Fairly, you've been in the squirrel dog game probably a couple years?
Probably 4 or 5 years at that point.
Yeah.
So not super long. Obviously, you're a teenager. It can't be, but still, you're young, impressionable, and then somebody that actually their opinion matters to you, to say something like that.
I never wanted him to go hunting with Apache ever again or any of them again. I said, man, he saw what he wanted to see, And I can't remember, honestly. We might have squirrel hunted a handful of times after that, but we mainly, Bill didn't hunt a whole lot at that point.
Yeah.
And mainly we usually went coon hunting. He did coon hunt with Apache after that. I remember we turned Apache and his Shine.
Yeah.
We turned Apache and Shine loose in a small place, and they hit Shine hit a track. Apache didn't say anything, and she took it up the holler there, and I'm watching on the, I wasn't watching on the Garmin. I guess I was beeping. I don't know. I don't remember now, but Apache came across the bottom, and we saw him in our light, and he was joking with me. Apache wouldn't tree a coon, and then Apache just grabs a tree right there where he was, and Shine went on up through the holler and ended up coming back down and doing nothing. We went over and he had a coon. I said, "Oh, now what are you talking about that cur dog?" You know?
Yep. I've had a few nights where cur dog looked pretty good and looked a little better than some hounds, and it's always, makes you feel good.
Oh, you're daggone right.
Because everybody talks trash on the cur dog. All the hound guys talk trash on the cur dogs. So
I've had a couple of nights there where a cur dog looked good, and a hound guy turned into a person I've never seen before, trying to defend themselves about it.
Yeah, that kind of happened with Mohawk and that Bill's blue dog that one time when. I mean, a lot of the hunts were just short hunts, like one tree and
because
two.
Bill was,
he couldn't go very good. He was older.
Yeah, he's having some major. I mean, he had open heart surgery and he's had breathing problems.
Gotcha.
He just couldn't go.
We cut Mohawk loose with that blue dog, and they both hit. Well, they hit the track, and Mohawk was with him, and then the blue dog was running, bawling, and next thing you know, Mohawk was 100 yards ahead, treed. He hadn't said anything.
Nice. Why don't you guys introduce yourself before we get too far into this? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have already figured out who you are, but for anybody that doesn't know.
Well, I'm Adam Loudon, and we're sitting here in Buchanan, West Virginia on the front porch now. Not really Mountain State Kennels front porch. My dad has the kennels at his house, but
yeah, I do all the dirty work. He's just a dog trainer, squirrel hunter, and I'm along. So a lot of times I'm along for the ride.
Yeah.
In days going by, I took the lead and said, "Well, we're going to go up this holler," and now I say, "Where are we going to go, Adam?"
There you go.
I'm Chuck Loudon, and I'm the old man. Sometimes the mouth of the organization. I don't know. That's what I've been called.
But you guys are pretty well known in the squirrel dog community with Mountain State Kennels. I know I've followed along with your guys' kennel for a long time, and you guys had a really nice website back in the day. I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of information on it, too.
I get credit for that website.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think that being young, I'd be the one that did the website, but I did not.
Yeah. You'd think being old, I'd be the one to train the dogs, but that's not true.
Yeah, I guess not.
Well, obviously, I kind of have a relative idea of how Mountain State Kennels started, but why don't you guys, for anybody that doesn't know, kind of give a brief synopsis of kind of how that all started?
Yeah, well, I'll just say that, Dad was a coon hunter, before I ever got into dogs. So maybe, Dad, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, the Mountain State Kennel name came from a little single registered English red tick who was a genuine cur dog. The best coon dog I ever hunted with. His name was Mountain State Rattler. And when Adam and I got started, the kennel, I always loved that Mountain State name. Mm-hmm. And that was the only dog named Mountain State anything that I remember. There were some others, probably a long line, but I don't know. But anyway, I just loved that name. And my friend Neil Rigger, who had Rattler, also had a dog named Apache.
Okay.
And his name was Beaver Creek Apache, but whatever. So anyway, we just kind of, that name just kind of rang with us. And then when Pepper's pup came along, Apache, he got that name too. So,
yeah.
But I did tree and walkers back in the 70s, and we probably, if Adam had listened to me, we wouldn't have gotten into cur dogs because when he was a boy, he wanted to get a cur dog, and in my mind, in my hound mindset, I said, well, we don't have a adult dog to train him with, so it'll be just be too hard to train one. And I don't know, maybe I'll get too far afoot, but when Adam was about 12 years old, back in, that's the computer days when you worrying about your kids doing stuff, and he came downstairs and one night and said, I did something really bad, but it turned out good. And you know how many times your 12-year-old say that to you. But anyway, he had been wanting to get a dog, and he worked. He had money, trimmed yards and mowed and stuff, and he had money. He wanted to buy a puppy, and his mom and I wouldn't let him do it. And he said, "I've got the money," and I said, "Yeah, but it's our responsibility to make you spend it wisely." And we don't have a adult dog to train a pup with. But he's talking to this guy in Kansas, Joe McMillan, on the computer, and he told Joe he's 12 years old and all this. So he comes downstairs and he says, "This guy said he will give me a pup if I can get it from Kansas to West Virginia." I looked at his mom and said, "What are we going to do now?" I mean, can't say he's not investing his money wisely because it don't cost anything. But anyway, that was Mountain State Pepper.
Okay.
And,
The bad thing I did was I told him my age and who I was, and they told me always not to do that on the internet.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the bad thing that turned out good, and so that was where Pepper came from, and then Mountain State Pepper was because of old Rattler.
Well, to back up a little bit, though, Dad did the coonhounds in the 70s, but then he sold his dogs, and when I was a kid, we didn't have any hunting dogs.
Yeah.
But I had the stories of hunting dogs, and I had, we hunted a lot, just, still hunted for squirrels and deer hunted, and I was obsessed with it.
He was eating up with it, yes.
Yeah.
But I wanted, he had told me all these stories about hounds, and there was a little squirrel dog, mixed up dog where he lived as a kid, and I wanted one, and, it just wasn't something that was on the going to be. But what ended up happening was there was an older guy who his wife was a teacher at my dad's school, and my dad ran a preschool for most of his career. And his wife was a teacher there, and we were at this picnic, and I found out he had a squirrel dog, and I was pretty insistent on going with him.
Yeah.
And Dad said I could go, and he had this little black and white spotted feist. His name was Monk, like a chipmunk.
Yeah.
And he came, and he'd drive through and pick me up, and I'd go hunting with this feist. And I mean, looking back on it, the dog was no dog. I mean, he was a squirrel treeing dog, but he also he'd bark 2 or 3 times and just walk around. And when you got there, he'd take you back to the tree. And I was obsessed with him and going squirrel hunting, and my buddy John Love, who was the guy that had the feist.
Yeah.
He would work 4 days on and 4 days off, and every day that I had off from school, that he had off from work, I would go hunting with him.
Yeah.
No matter whether I was throwing up sick or whatever, I was going hunting with him. So that's kind of where I got going into it, and that's why I got on at the time Squirrel Dog Central.
Yeah.
And started chatting with those people and trying to find a dog. So that's when I was in 7th grade, I guess.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Kind of similar. I found Squirrel Dog Central when I was in high school, and same thing. And that's how I met Mike, and it was good. It was a good place to meet people in the squirrel dog world.
I had several good friends. The one that sticks out to me. Well, there's lots that stick out to me, but Barry Brown, I talked to on there. Barry lives up in Michigan, and he had a world champion dog named Princess Di, and there was 3 or 4 people that I'd talked to a lot at that time, and we met out at Elnora. That's the first time I met those people, and I had a young Pepper, and it was just
it was funny. We went out to Elnora, and we were staying at whatever I can't remember the name of that hotel where he stayed out there all the time. But anyway, like his mom and I took him. We went out there. We had no idea what we were getting into. But anyway, we pull up to this hotel, and there's all these people outside, and he had he used the name Bob Coblow on the Squirrel Dog Central. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. But that's a story for another day. Anyway, we get out of the car out there, and his mom and Adam and I, and someone looks over, and says, "Is that Bob?" They said, "Bob, there's Bob." So anyway, it was like we're all these adults and our 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob, then you were probably 13 or 14.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, how was Pepper bred?
Well, she's out of a brother and sister cross. So at the time, and I didn't know this at the time, but the Duff's Bob blood was kind of sought after.
Mm-hmm.
And I later kind of figured it all out, but at the time it didn't matter to me. I just wanted the dog. But, her mother is a Hall of Fame dog, Bonnie Betty.
Yep.
And her father help me with the dog's name. Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
Dirty Harry.
Marmon's Dirty Harry.
And they're both out of the same cross, so it's a brother-sister cross.
Yeah.
We
And-
didn't know that when we got that she was inbred, but whatever.
And yeah, I mean, we didn't know, but we ended up getting some really great blood right off the bat,
Yep.
and I didn't have full recognition of it at the beginning. But since I don't know if you did this, but when I was a kid, I'd sit there and just comb through these National Cur and Feist breeder yearbooks over and over and over. I just look at them over, and she's very. They've got the same blood as the Ohio Bobby dog that James Menser had, and
Yeah,
I
she's
just
one of the same
remember.
cross.
I remember watching the books there and seeing Bobby with a giant tailgate of squirrels as a kid and
Yeah.
thinking, oh man, I'd love to have a dog like that. And I ended up actually having the same blood.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
And we were Adam was searching all over the United States for the right dog to breed her to, and I kept telling him, I said, man, we got like the nicest dog in the country just a few miles away up there in Ohio, and we ended up taking her up and breeding her to Franklin's Thunder.
Yep.
Which was like, I don't know. We stumbled into all of that. I mean, I used to talk about the dominant cross breeding, but the cross that Pepper's both parents came from was produced a lot of great dogs, and of course the cross that Franklin Thunder was from was the same thing. And when we put that together, man, it just was something else. I mean, and there were a lot of good dogs out there. None of them are known as like Apache was, but there were a lot of good dogs from that cross. And we did it a couple times.
twice, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And then, obviously, Apache, most people are probably going to know Apache. You did a lot of winning with him, didn't you?
Did a lot of winning with him. And, well, if I could take you back to when he was a puppy, I mean, first off, he was kind of lucky to be alive because of a weird story that happened to him where he was at my uncle's. My uncle has a little farm, and he was letting a couple of my puppies run loose.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a
Siberian Husky.
Yeah, thank you. He had a husky there, and the husky, when the Apache was like 8-9 weeks old, bit him right through the middle and almost killed him.
Oh, geez.
And he was lucky to be alive, honestly.
Yeah,
after
he carried some white hairs on his abdomen from where that healed up. I mean, he bit him all the way through.
Jeez.
And
Adam was going over there with a gun, go kill that husky.
Well, he started treeing it. Actually, he started treeing in the yard probably 5 months old. And I'll be totally honest with you, he was just as good a tree dog on the day one as he ended up being.
Yeah.
And I remember I hunted him by himself there around the house, and he ran a deer 2 miles like the first day I took him hunting. And I mean, he was just an exceptional pup and started on his own. I mean, I remember so clearly the day he split treed when we took him with Pepper the first time, and then just an incredible dog. But I did a lot of winning with him, and at the time we were going to WTDA hunts all the time.
Yeah.
So I think, Dad, you probably remember the stats on it. How many hunts did we put him in?
Yeah, well, we put it. Adam had him in 23 casts, and he won 21 of them. And he had, I'm a numbers guy. Anyway, he had 7,600 plus and 125 minus. And I always used to. That's when with Adam handling. That's what he had in those hunts. And I always used to put an asterisk at the end of that, because that 125 minus, he went back and got treed back in and had plus on that too. So I didn't want to count that. But I'm telling you, he was, when it came to competition, the only thing that he lacked was flying there 100 miles an hour deep, because he was he wasn't that kind of dog. He was a kind of dog going around you and getting every squirrel everywhere.
Yeah.
But so he lost. Well, the first competition hunt he was in, he was only 17 months old. Adam is like this. He's very cautious about this stuff, and he was not going to put him in a hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we need to have this dog in a competition hunt. Adam said, I don't know. We don't, this, that, whatever excuses he was coming up with. I said, let's go hunting today. We'll hunt. You hunt Apache, I'll hunt Pepper. We'll call them and score them, and if Apache wins, then we'll take him to the WTDA World Hunt. And if he doesn't, we won't. I'll go with you. He beat Pepper by 525 points. And he said, well, I guess we have to go to this hunt. Well, he went up there, and he was reserve world champion when it was over with. And,
nice.
And he was 17, and Apache was 17 months. So
That's awesome.
After that, man, we plowed him through some hunts there for a while.
Yeah.
He made Super Grand Squirrel Champion, maybe with Lacked One hunt being as fast as you can make it.
Okay.
WTDA.
Yeah, he was super special, and you know, the thing about back then, the competition game has changed obviously a lot, but
Yeah.
back then, a lot of people's dogs wouldn't stay treed, and I've heard people, talk about that on the podcast, and
Yeah.
it's true. But he was an absolutely stay treed all day long dog from the beginning, and
Okay.
and that's what that and the top that the fact that he had an insane tree style that is still kind of noteworthy.
Yeah.
That stomp.
He had the stomp, and he did it on every tree, and he was 100 bark a minute tree dog on every tree, and that was very rare at the time.
Yeah.
And once he made up his mind, I mean, it was like he made up his mind. He was like insane focused on that tree. I mean, his eyes would get big and the slobbers flew, and once he made up his mind, he was there.
But when he was a puppy, and I think that we have always done this well, is when we breed dogs, we try to look at what they are naturally, not necessarily what you put into them.
What you can make them, yeah.
Because that's what you're going to get when you breed dogs.
Yeah.
And when he was a pup, like call him an 8-10 month old dog, when you cut him loose, he was a straight line hunter, and I mean, he didn't end up that way, not because I tried to stop him. He eventually just, started hunting loops.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was a pup, you cut him loose and you were going to get him in a straight line somewhere treed at that 8-10 month old age.
Yeah.
And for some reason, he stopped doing that.
I think he got smarter. That's what I always thought. I think he somehow he figured out there's squirrels all around you. You don't have to go that way as far as you can go to get them.
Yeah.
And in competition hunt now, that might be a detriment to him. But man, back then he treated a bunch of squirrels.
But he threw that hard hunt in a lot of his dogs because of it, I think. I mean, that's just the way he was as a pup. And I think that as a breeder, one of the most important things you can do is to be honest with yourself, about what your dogs do naturally.
Yeah.
And then that's what you need to use as your baseline. And I think that's one of the things that's a problem for if you don't raise and train your own dogs, then you don't all the time know, and people don't like to talk about maybe what the dog did naturally.
Exactly. And they don't want to talk about dogs' faults.
It's kind of limited us some because of breeding, because we don't want to accidentally breed to a man-made dog,
Yeah.
So we've kind of been really cautious and try to breed the dogs that we think were natural, born natural, and because that's what you're breeding for.
Yeah.
You can't breed for man-made dogs because you know.
No, I mean, when you do that, you're really just breeding for intelligence, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So after Apache and Pepper, you had Geronimo, right?
Yeah, and the way Geronimo came about, well, he was, we bred Apache to a female that Alan had named Ginger, and I loved Ginger from day one. I mean, I hunted with her with Alan when she was young, and she was as top notch as could be. He didn't hunt her in a whole lot of hunts, and I'd say if he had her now, he probably would have hunted her in more hunts because she was such a top dog.
Yeah.
But we bred them and got Geronimo. Well, we didn't actually have him as a pup. It was Alan's stud feet pup. And
No, you got it backwards. We bred Apache to his dog. We had a stud feet pup. Alan kept Geronimo.
Oh, that's right. I don't remember what happened to ours.
We sold him once we got our hands on Geronimo.
Oh, okay. But anyway, Geronimo, Alan at the time had some Amish guys who were starting his pups for him.
Yeah.
And he had called down here and said, he had one of these pups that was treeing its own squirrels at 5-6 months old, so he got it back from the Amish guys. And at the time, he was hunting the Ranger dog, and he was getting split off. I remember Alan telling me, this 6-month-old pup's getting split treed off this other dog, and of course I wanted him, and we were talking about how we were going to get him, and then you can tell what happened.
I pestered Alan for that dog something awful, and he named him Geronimo, which is like crazy. You'd think that was the name we came up with, but he named him Geronimo. But anyway, I pestered Alan for that dog, and he didn't want to sell him. his daughter Taylor was riding him around the yard in a pink Jeep, and he was just a pet almost.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just kept bothering him. He was sounding like he was going to sell him, and then he wouldn't. So I called him right before Adam's 19th birthday, I think it was, and I said, if you're going to sell me that dog, I want it on May 27th. I want to come and get it that day. And he said he'd take $1,000 for him, and that wouldn't sound like as much right now.
No, today that's like
$1,000
for a really nice, young, promising dog that's already trained its own squirrels.
Yeah. But he said
at the time, though, what year was that? I mean, that was 2005 or 6?
3.
Was it that early? Yeah, well, that was probably a lot for a 6-month-old dog at that time.
But anyway, what Alan told me was he said Taylor's going to be really mad at me for selling this dog. She was, I don't know, she's probably 7 or something like that. He said, so when you bring the money, bring me with it. I want you to bring me $101 bills because I'm going to give those to Taylor.
There you go.
And so I told Adam, I said, well, we're going to go get your birthday present today. And he said, what's that? And I said, well, we got to drive to get it. Hop in the truck and let's go. He didn't even know we were doing it, but it was on his birthday. I drove him up and we got Geronimo.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he was awesome from the beginning. I mean, I remember the first day I hunted him. I think it was the first day I hunted him. I might have hunted him a few days by himself, but I remember we turned him loose with the Holly dog we had. And I can't remember the details of it, but he just blew in there and got treed. When he blew past her, and she wouldn't go hunting as hard as he would, he turned around like, what's wrong with you?
Looked at her. He just turned around and looked at her, and then he went, boom, and he was gone.
He just blew in there and got treated. 7, at that point, he's probably 7 months old-ish.
Yeah, he was 7 months old.
He was just
barely.
Just a fantastic young dog in all accounts. And the problem was we didn't have any squirrels at that time. We had one of these years where we'd had 2 bad mast crops in a row.
Yep.
We had no squirrels, and sometimes I think that's the reason why he was such a deep hunter, because he grew up in that. He grew up with no game.
Well, a lot of people would. Nobody knows. Maybe I don't know. But when he was reserve world champion too, and when he won that, he had 5 squirrels out to him. That's all he'd had.
Wow.
I mean, we could not find a squirrel. It didn't matter to him. He just hunted and hunted, and treed. When he finally found a tree, he treed one. 5 squirrels is all he had out to him. He was under 2 years old. But that whole year, we got 5 squirrels out that dog.
That's crazy.
Just Dad always remembers all the numbers of the stuff, which is nice because, I can't remember what happened. But, the thought of that is crazy to me.
I know.
And I remember hunting him all the time, but I just don't remember not getting anything out to him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Man, he would go. With Adam, when we got him, Adam said, what I really want is a dog that'll go. And a couple times after that, I said, you might learn to eat your words because this dog is going. I mean, he was going. He was going way out.
But he did a lot of winning too. I mean, it's just like Apache. He made Super Grand Squirrel Champion in like the minimum number of hunts. And, he won so many hunts around here. We used to have a lot of hunts in West Virginia, and he just won all the time. And he was such a nice dog. He was, he'd get treed on his own. He would cover a dog sometimes if they had a tree and he wasn't treed yet, but he would also be split. I mean, he was the type of dog in a hunt that'd get a little bit of yours and then get a couple on his own. And then the real thing that was benefit to him was just what a great reproducer he was, because you could probably breed him to a poodle and come out with tree dogs. I mean, it didn't matter what you bred him to, you were going to get a tree dog out of it. Yeah. And he just... from the beginning when we started crossing him on stuff, it was just constantly people pouring in talking about how nice the pups were.
Pups were. I mean, I couldn't tell everybody about all the good pups out of him because it was just like every one of them almost was. And so that's what made him what he was. Now, what made him what he was to me was he was a great pet.
He was.
I took him camping. I mean, he lived on my back porch. He was so stinking smart that he literally, I walked him through this neighborhood, a little residential kind of neighborhood we live in. I walk him through there, and he would see a squirrel on the ground, and I could 20 feet away, and I could say, "No, we're not doing that now," and he'd just ignore it.
Wow, that's smart.
And he would, all you had to do was say we're going, and he'd be 1,000 yards in there after a squirrel. But if there was one right in front of him, and I told him we're not hunting, he just would not do it.
And he would walk out. He would, when you'd get him off the last tree. If I said to him, I don't remember if he did it probably with you the same way, but if I said to him, "Hey, we're done," he'd just walk right beside of you and act like nothing was going on. And he would often wind a squirrel walking out.
Yeah.
And whine, but he wouldn't break heel.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you didn't have to remind him about it. You told him one time, and he
We're
just
done.
sat there.
It was like one time you say we're done, right behind you, and walk the rest of the way out.
And if you did want to, I remember the one hunt specifically, but we were walking him out, and he was whining, and he.
You were in college. I said, "You got time for another tree?"
And, I remember this, and I said, "Yeah, go ahead, Geronimo," and he just blew in there and treed that squirrel. But he wouldn't break heel unless you told him to, and he's such a smart dog. And when I moved to Indiana, he's the dog that I actually took with me when I moved out there, and that was a tough time for me. First time I moved away from home and everything, and me and Geronimo explored Bloomington, Indiana, and we hunted all this public, and he was such a joy to be around and hunt with at that time. And I hunted him by himself all the time and just had a blast with him. But to go back, the reason we sold Apache was because of him. We had him, and he was such a nice young dog. And what happened with Apache was that some random guy, I don't know who this guy is, he called me one day.
Offered a lot of money.
Offered me a ton of money for Apache. And I remember thinking that I didn't want to sell him to this random guy, obviously. He was like my baby.
Yeah.
And
but we knew some people who wanted him.
Yeah,
and Adam pretty much handpicked Mark Morrison.
I just asked Mark if he was interested in him, and it was tough to sell him, but I thought at the time, and I still think, with the amount of people that were squirrel hunting in the South compared to here, that he would make a bigger impact, and
definitely
that he would get bred more, and it did happen that way. And on top of it, Mark was a great guy, and
at the same time, it's hard to push two stud dogs.
Yeah, it is. And at the time Geronimo was young, we didn't totally know where he would end up, but you just, if you'd have seen him, you kind of knew.
And Adam was in college, and he had a lot of demands on him at that particular moment in time, and to try to hunt two dogs, and Geronimo both dogs needed to be in the woods because they were both young dogs. Geronimo was a puppy, and Apache was 3. Because we bred Apache really early to Ginger, and so there wasn't much difference in their ages,
Yeah.
But it was like, that's a lot of money, and we've got too many dogs.
Yeah.
Then we started getting and hunting Geronimo pups. So,
yeah.
And then we had a lot of good Geronimo pups, lots of them. And a couple really, really standout ones that I hunted when I lived out in Indiana that were really awesome. So,
name some of these standout pups.
So, the ones that I had that I liked the most, Alan had this dog named Thunder Lady.
Okay.
A friend of mine, Randy Barker, started the dog, and I hunted with her when she was young, and Alan bred her and to Geronimo several times because the pups were so good.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I had a couple that I really liked. I had one named Geronimo's Mountain State Sioux.
Yep, I remember.
And she was, heck, she won her first hunt when she was like 8 or 9 months old, and I hunted her for a long time and really, really enjoyed her, and she was really fantastic. And then the other one was probably my favorite dog of all time, which the dog's name was Mountain State Mohawk.
Okay.
And he didn't get hunted in a lot of hunts just because of the time that I had him. And it was, I was in graduate school, and I kind of was at this point where I was not going to hunts anymore.
Yeah.
But I hunted him so much out there and had so much fun. And actually, when I had him was when I started hunting with Kenny Smith.
Okay.
And that was a big thing for me. But he was fantastic. He was a great coon dog too. And when I lived out there was a big coon population.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who liked to climb trees and shake coons out. And we were turning Mohawk loose all the time.
Yeah.
After graduate school classes, we'd go turn him loose, and he would be treeing coons, and he'd go up and shake one or two out at night till he got too tired and couldn't climb anymore. And then I'd squirrel hunt him, and to me, he was the epitome of what a squirrel dog should be. I mean, you just cut him loose, and he was just blow in there, be tree hard. Have the percentage of him having the squirrel was just outrageous. He had the squirrel all the time. He'd tree him off the wind. He'd tree him off a track. You know, he could do it all. And I absolutely love the dog. He about ruined me because I about quit doing anything else. I wasn't starting a young dog. I was just hunting him all the time, just because. I mean, he was so much fun to hunt.
He was one of the few dogs Adam ever had that reached his prime, and then he still wanted to hunt him. Because Adam's style is when there's no potential left for learning, then it kind of ruins it for him.
Yeah, I mean, I like to move on, but you know, the dog was.
He was just so much enjoyment.
Yeah, I just loved him, man. I'd hunt him. I probably would have just hunted him for years, and if. What ended up happening with him was he had kidney failure when he was, how old was he?
6.
He was 6, and he got kidney failure, and he just wasn't eating. I went to the vet, and the vet said he'll be dead in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It was just such a punch to the stomach.
So we hunted him till he couldn't walk.
Yeah, we literally hunted him. That day that the vet said that, I hunted him every day, and most nights.
Well, we skipped when he wasn't able to walk. I mean, when he was just couldn't get out of the box.
Every time he could hunt, we hunted him from that day until he died. And it's a sad story, but it's also an incredible story that when he was, literally about to die,
well, first of all, I'm going to interrupt you. We took him hunting, and we had to carry. He treated 4 squirrels. The only thing he would eat, Adam, and this was Adam's idea, he cut the squirrels open and fed him the insides. That's all he would eat. He wouldn't eat any food at all.
Jeez.
And so we were out. It was out of season, but we didn't care. We killed the squirrels and cut them open and fed him the insides. But the last real hunt we took him on, we had to carry him back to the truck. He couldn't walk back. Up this little hill to the truck. I carried him back up there, and then I'll let you go ahead with the backyard story, because
it was. I'll never forget it. I mean, I was going to take him again, and he was he was skin and bones. I mean, he absolutely he looked terrible, and he walked up the steps, just barely could get up the steps and I knew I was going to have to put him in the truck. Well, when I got him up there, a squirrel ran across Dad's driveway, and I just decided to take him over there and see if he would tree it. I mean, he could barely walk.
He laid his head on Adam's leg and just closed his eyes and stood there asleep, standing up. I mean, that's how tired he was.
And he went over, and he got on that squirrel track, and he ran it down the hill, and he just...
Ran it. He walked it down the hill.
Yeah, he walked it down the hill. And he got down there, and he barked like one little, just
sounded
super
like a
weak bark.
Frog croaking or something.
On the tree, and... I mean, it was absolutely heartbreaking to watch a dog that you love that much. And I loved him probably more than any of them. And we went down there and he had the squirrel, I didn't know where the squirrel was, and he had the squirrel. And
Adam said, go back to the house and get to 22. And so
we went down there, and
Adam
I shot the squirrel out. I cut the squirrel open, gave him the insides, and Dad killed him in that moment. It was one of the toughest moments I've ever been involved with a dog, but man, what an amazing moment for a dog that deserved it.
Yeah, Adam handed me the gun and said, "I can't do it, Dad," and I shot him, and we sat there.
Still upset about it to this day.
Yeah.
But
I can understand that.
But he died doing. Few of them get to die doing what they love so much that they'll do it when they can't even bark anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was special, man, and he was one of my special Geronimo dogs. So.
Well, I remember Mohawk, like you said, you didn't push him in hunts, so I don't remember seeing a whole lot about him.
So. Yeah, and we just, at that time, I kind of quit doing hunts. And, it's hard to explain, but the best way I can explain it is that I wasn't having fun doing hunts anymore. And
okay.
Most of it is mainly because I'm a head case, and in trying to prepare dogs for a hunt.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time going to hunt down at Jamestown. It was snowed, and everything just went bad. And when we left there, Adam said, "The next time I want to go to a competition hunt, tell me. Let's just call one of our buddies and go hunting and actually have some fun." And we did that for it was 9 years before we went to the next hunt. I mean,
yeah, I just wasn't enjoying it because it had nothing to do with the hunts themselves. It was just me.
it just wasn't any fun.
And I'd spend all this time, preparing a dog, and then I don't know. I think I just kind of got crazy at some point because when the dog would make a mistake, it really upset me. Like,
Yeah.
And if you're going to be getting mad all the time at the dog or at yourself, it didn't feel to me like it was worth being there.
Exactly.
And so I just kind of quit doing it at that point.
There you go. No, I mean, I understand. So I don't blame you.
Yeah, I mean, I know I still follow everybody that's in the hunts, and I follow all the dogs, but it's hard to explain. But it's actually I'm a musician too, and it feels very similar to the aggravation that I get with myself when I play poorly on a gig.
Yeah.
It's just like I can't deal with it anymore. It's not enjoyable for me.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, we've gone to hunts in recent years, and I've had a great time.
Yeah, it's
good.
Fun to connect with people again.
But to do it like we did it when I was younger, I just don't have the urge to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So what do you got as far as dogs now?
Well, we've got
a couple of competition dogs.
dogs that aren't getting put in hunts. Now we've got I had post Geronimo. I had a dog named Comanche. That was my Geronimo dog that I finally settled on of being the one that we wanted to use to breed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the only dog I've ever had that treated a squirrel the first time I ever took him to the woods. Well, no, his pup did too, but a pup that I sold.
Yeah.
That pup didn't end up having the hunt and other stuff where Comanche did. And,
Yeah.
we ended up breeding Comanche to various things, but one of the things that we bred him to was a full sister to Tank and Geronimo
Okay.
that Alan now has. And so now we have a dog that we call G2, Geronimo
Okay.
2. And he's a dandy. And then the other dog that I have right now that's the only dog that's here at this house, the rest of them are at Dad's house, is a dog named Crazy Horse. And Crazy Horse, we bought a dog from Stanley Hockenberry, a puppy.
Out of Tank.
Out of Tank and
20KK.
20KK. 20KK is out of Geronimo. And she's a world champion.
Okay.
And we bought a puppy out of her and Tank when Stanley bred her back to Tank. And that dog's name is T-Bird. And I hunted her for a few seasons, and she's phenomenal. And she was phenomenal from the beginning. And we took her and actually drove all the way down. And it's my one time going down and visiting Mark Morrison on his home turf. And drove all the way down there, and Todd Jackson drove from Louisiana up to Mississippi to meet me. And I sent her down, and she got bred to Bayou Bob.
Okay.
And I was so excited about doing this in the first place, and it was just such a logistical nightmare to drive down there and everything.
Yeah.
And it all worked out, and man, Todd was so awesome because Todd took her back down there and kept her for like a month, and then eventually we had a dog hauler bring her back, and the pup that we end up keeping was this Crazy Horse pup.
Okay.
And he
lives up to the name because he goes.
Yeah.
We just call him Crazy, but
he's a really hard hunting dog, good tree dog,
Yeah.
accurate dog. I mean, he's the type of dog that I really like.
Okay.
And I've been hunting him now for give or take a year and a half. I think he's a little older than that, but I don't often hunt my dogs when they're super young like a lot of people. So
Okay.
I didn't really start hunting him much until he was 10 months to a year old. But he treat a squirrel in the yard at 5 months old. And,
yeah.
I remember sending that to Todd and sending a video of him. And, I think people would wonder why I didn't hunt him that much right then. But it wasn't the right time of year. And I think when people are talking about, starting pups, I really believe that when it comes to starting pups, that you're better off to let the time of year kind of determine what you do. And
Yeah.
it was in the summer. It just didn't make any sense to hunt him right then. And I waited until squirrels started coming down.
Well, plus when we turned him loose, he just went out of this country. And when you're not going to tree squirrels in the middle of summer, that's not a good time to do that.
Yeah, and he was junky in the beginning. He would run deer a lot, and I didn't try to break him.
Yeah.
I was just going to let him do his thing until he kind of broke himself.
Yep.
And I ended up having to break him a little bit, but he was,
because he's crazy.
Yeah, because he lives up to the name, but he he does everything he does it hard.
Yeah.
And I think what ended up happening, was I'm just waiting for him to fall treat, and eventually he started falling treat off the deer, and then I ended up breaking him off deer. But I waited till fall and hunted him when there were squirrels.
Yeah.
So it worked out for him.
Yeah, he's a go-getter. I make him sound crazy, which he is kind of, but he's really smart too. I mean, he is super smart.
Well, he's really well mannered. Like we sit out here in the summer, I sit out here and just throw the ball with him, and he retrieves the ball, and he'll just walk around this place at my ankles, and
he'll do whatever Adam tells him to do. I mean, if he says get in the truck, Adam could hide the truck somewhere, and he would find that thing.
Yeah, he lays out here and lets my boys rub around on him, and my boys now. I've got 2 sons, one 8 years old and one 5 years old, and Thomas and Elliot. They go hunting all the time. And in fact, we went the other day. I don't hunt in the summer, but the other day we decided to go. Yeah. When you were coming down, I said, "Oh well, we better turn this dog loose a couple times in case we end up, going out with Ben." And we took him up, and of course, the first thing my wife said was, "Are you sure you want to go take them with that dog and turn them loose in the summer?" And
take a 5-year-old with crazy horses.
Yeah, well, and that was a reasonable question.
Yeah.
But we turned him loose, and he just blew in there and got treated like he normally does. And the boys went in and found a squirrel, and I know you've got kids, right?
Yeah.
And right now we're just having so much fun all the time with these boys. And my older son now is killing the squirrels when we hunt, and my youngest son is obsessed with being in the woods and finding snakes and bugs and everything, frogs. And he actually, when we go hunting, he carries a bottle around with him just in
case he catches something.
Yeah, he does. He carries in fact, he was upset the other day when we took Crazy. He said, "I forgot my bug bottle." He said. So he, when we're hunting. And that's one nice thing about Crazy. He'll say treat all day. So, he got treat. I think the first tree was like 500. He gets in there and gets treat. And Thomas just took off and went to the dog. And Elliot, he's sitting there. He's
found centipedes.
We found centipede. We found a newt. We found a frog. Heck, who knows how long it took us to get to the tree. But yeah, so it's pretty fun. I love having my kids out there with them.
We got another nice dog now too. We call her Dreamcatcher, and she's out of T-Bird, Thunderbird too.
Okay.
This one was driving up to Michigan.
So I drove up to Michigan and bred T-Bird to Porcupine Mountain Bud.
Okay.
Of Adam O'Donnell's dog, and that's been a good cross too. I mean, all the people that have the pups honestly have liked them, and we ended up buying this one back off my friend Brad Hill down in Virginia, and she's a nice dog, and I'm really excited about her. We hunted her in Crazy last winter. Me and Brad did. Brad came up, Brad came up because he got another pup. He bought a pup out of T-Bird in
Duck Creek Razor,
Allen's Razor dog.
Yeah, and
we turned Dream loose with Crazy, and it was terrible weather, and we still had a good hunt. I think we looked at 5 or 6, and
nice.
And I remember Dream. Well, the first tree, Dream got over and split off of Crazy, and then she had the squirrel and he didn't. So I was feeling the pressure off the first tree. And, then at the end, all I remember about the hunt, at the very end of the hunt, Crazy went like, I don't know, almost a mile or something, and treed for a half hour. And we got there and he had the squirrel. And but anyway, the Dream dog is going to be a dandy, and there's no doubt. So.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun hunting those two. And for the first time in a long time, we're not starting a pup this fall. Yay!
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm as happy about it as Dad is, but just kind of it's not falling where I have a pup, and my boys are both doing soccer and baseball, and I just Dad finally talked me into saying, "Hey, let's just go hunting and enjoy it for once," but.
Which would be good for the boys, but we still got a couple. You got 2 dogs that are still learning. You'll be okay.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's like I hunt 6-7 days a week, and I don't know. It's just like to not have a pup this fall is going to be weird because it's normally just I sit there and I don't know about everybody else. I daydream about it, think about it in the evening. What's that dog going to do tomorrow, and it's not easy for me to. to hunt all the time, I got to rearrange my whole life schedule to do it. And a lot of times here, because we don't have any property, so it's like I can't turn loose here by the house.
Yeah.
And I'm a school teacher, and when the weather breaks, I take my dogs to work with me.
There you go.
And they lay in the truck on my lunch break. I go out and get them out of the truck, and then when I leave work, I go straight to the woods and hunt right after work. And it takes a lot of effort to do this constantly.
Yeah.
And I like to have that pup that's keeping me,
keeping the juices flowing.
Yeah, So we'll see what happens this fall. I guess I'm just going to hunt these older dogs every day and enjoy it. So.
Well, I tell you what, I think we won't have any trouble enjoying it.
Oh, I know that, but
the boys going with us will make it enjoyable too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, that's having young kids, I try to kind of almost set everything up to make sure we have good hunts when I take my sons.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's stressful in itself, and then you throw in a young dog on top of it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I wouldn't. There's times when I wouldn't turn them loose with. The dog has to get so far before you're willing to turn them loose with them.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, when I think about getting another pup started, I think about how it was with Crazy Horse, and it's like, well, I mean, even last year it was like Adam and Thomas, who's 8, and I went. And we took Crazy Horse out, and he treed, what was it, 1.3 miles or something away. We drove, Thomas and I drove 13 miles to get to where Adam could go get Crazy Horse and then meet us at the truck. He had to walk another mile on the other side of that. And Thomas was really concerned. I mean, we drove for 20 minutes. He said, where's Daddy going to be?
Well, what's bad about this is crazy tree squirrels all around you, but when everything shuts down, he's just going to go on
won't
through.
Stop, yeah.
And that's not really suited to a kid. So generally speaking, what I do with my boys is, I make a couple good trees and.
Well, what we do is we take Sky or T-Bird.
Well, that too.
So that it's more manageable. That's
Yeah.
But like the other day when we turned Crazy loose with the boys, and he made 2 trees, and when we got to the second tree, I'm just looking at the whole situation going, let's call it a day, fellas.
Yeah.
You just don't want to get into a bad situation.
No, exactly.
So.
Yeah, one of the things my wife hates is when we say, "Oh, man, let's just make one more tree," because that's where it all falls apart.
Yeah. Definitely. So, Conkeys Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkeys motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkeys carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well. Well, anything else you guys want to talk about?
Oh, I mean,
We've kind of covered where you started and where you're at. So, any good stories or anything?
There are a couple.
You got a good story?
Huh?
If you got a good story, go ahead. While you're telling one, I'll think of one.
Well, I mean, the best story is Pepper.
I don't
just
know.
Just a funny story.
Which one are you going to tell?
When she treed 2 bear.
Oh, okay. I know what you're going to tell. Well, when I was a kid and I didn't have a driver's license, I'd oftentimes have my mom and dad or my brother drive me to the woods and drop me off, and then somebody would come back and get me, you know. And usually what we did was come back and get me at dark or whatever it was. And I remember some times when Dad, I remember one time Dad said he could see the blast coming out of the shotgun. It was so dark when I was coming out. But what happened was I turned Pepper loose on this wildlife management area that I hunted a lot, and we'd made a few trees, and then she started baying. And I went down there where I just thought she was booger barking. I didn't know what she was doing at the time. And I get down there, and there's a couple of college students naked, wrapped in a towel.
Oh, a blanket,
excuse me. And she's baying them there. She's barking at them, and the guy's trying to get her to leave, and she won't leave. And she's barking at her. And
Adam's trying to call her away.
I tried to call her.
She won't come.
I tried to call her, and she wouldn't come, and so I had to go all the way over there to him. I was probably 14 years old, 15. I had to go all the way over there to him and hook her up. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And the guy, I just remember him.
You were older than that. You were.
I didn't have a car, so couldn't have been 16.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
But anyway, I hooked her up, and when I pulled her away, I remember saying, "I'm so sorry," and the guy saying,
"Me too."
"Yeah, but I'm sorry too." And anyway, I walked down, and I got down to the road to leave. And I didn't have a car. I was supposed to be down there at such and such time. I don't even remember.
You got there way early because of this.
Yeah, but the whole thing messed up my hunt. So I get down there, and I'm waiting for someone to come pick me up. And then these people had to walk out past me again. So as embarrassing as it was, then we had to have yet another interaction after that. Yeah. And then Mom and Dad came and picked me up, and I said, "Well, you're not going to believe what happened." And then Dad came up with, he said, she treed a couple bear. Well, there was a couple, and they were bear. That's absolutely true.
I asked Adam, I said, did you recognize him? He said, I didn't recognize the guy. And I said, you didn't recognize the girl either? And he said, I never saw her face. He said, she never let me see her face.
She didn't either. It was pretty funny. I mean,
that's funny.
That was a good one. I'm trying to think of other good stories. Oh man, we've had a bunch of them.
I'm sure you guys have had some good dogs. So, I mean, obviously you've had some good hunts.
Oh man, I've had one of the best hunts I ever had was with a Mountain State Sioux, and I was living in Indiana at the time, and I can't remember why I got it in my mind I wanted to go to this wildlife management area.
She's a full sister to Mohawk.
Yeah. Okay. And I can't remember why I wanted to go to this wildlife management area, but. So I think Merle Seeley had posted about it on the internet or something, that they had gone to Minnehaha Wildlife Management Area and treat all these squirrels. So I decided, hey, I got up one morning. I said, I'm going to drive over there and go hunting. Well, I drove over there, and I mean, it's fox squirrel country. And when you grow up in gray squirrel country and you go out there, it's just such a, you have a blast when you're getting in game. And, Susie, she treed 5 squirrels and that's the limit out there. She treed 5 squirrels as quick as you could treat 5 squirrels and just looked like $1 million. And, I was strutting around there by myself, proud of my dog. And I cut her loose to make one more tree, even though I'd already killed my limit. And she treed a bow hunter. She went in there and she got treed, just sounded like she was treed normal. And when I got in there, there was a guy in a tree stand in the tree, and she was just treeing on him like he was a squirrel. I remember thinking, this is how crazy it was. And then the guy didn't get upset about it or anything. I apologized and left. And I know if bow hunters get a bad rap, and I've given them a bad rap myself sometimes, but this guy was the nicest guy you ever want to meet.
Yeah.
And I remember another hunt out there.
I was just thinking this. I'm sure I'm thinking the same.
I know you are, because we went out. We now go out, or we have been for years, in hunting with Kenny Smith and Alan Franklin. This hunt that we call the Thunder Memorial Hunt. And I hunted when I lived in Indiana. I got with Kenny Smith, and Kenny trained Franklin's Thunder, and Kenny's one of my best friends. And I'd go hunt with him on Fridays because I worked as a director of education at a Sylvan Learning Center.
Okay. And
I had Friday off. So I'd drive up 2 hours to hunt with Kenny all day, and we hunted all day. And so then anyway, eventually we all started getting together out there for one weekend. And oh man, we just have these big hunts, killing a whole bunch of squirrels and having a great time. And we were sitting there, I can't remember what dogs were treed, but a couple dogs got treed together. We get in there and we find the squirrel, and the squirrel started timbering and everybody started shooting. And then this guy starts yelling, and he's in a tree. What was it, Dad? Probably 30, 40 yards away?
Oh, yeah, up in a tree, up high in a tree.
And we laughed so hard because, can you imagine guys going in there to dog's treed,
and the
you just
timbering out, and we're shooting at it.
Yeah, and you're in the tree. I just can't imagine not yelling at the guys and saying, "Hey, I'm here."
Yeah.
When you see them start looking in the tree and everything, the dogs are treed. He had to have known we walked in there with an arsenal of guns. We're getting ready to start shooting.
He said, "I'm here" when we started shooting, though.
Oh yeah. Then he started yelling, "Oh, whoa, guys, I'm up here." That was a good one.
I thought you were going to tell a different story. I thought you were going to tell when you took Sue down there and that. I thought that was Minnehaha too, but maybe I'm wrong. And I'm sitting at my computer at work, and I get a call from Adam. He said, "I have no idea. You got to help me find my way out of this woods." He said, "I walked up to the river, and it's flowing the wrong direction." And he said, it was going to the left, now it's going to the right. I don't have any idea where I am. Can you help me find my way out of this woods? And he said,
So he's in Indiana,
and I'm
you're
in West Virginia
and
at
you're
my
sitting in
computer.
West Virginia.
and well, that was before GPS and OnX and all that stuff. So anyway, I pulled up if it was Minnehaha, I think it was.
I think it was.
Pulled up the map on my, on my computer, and he starts telling me this and that, and I said, well, I think there's this big loop in the river, and I think you're looking at the wrong place. And I talked him out of the woods from my computer in West Virginia to get him back to his truck.
Well, I'm sure there's some Flatlanders listening to this podcast going to get a big kick out of this. But when you take a guy that hunts in the hills and hollers and you stick him in a totally flat woods, it doesn't go well.
You're used to those landmarks.
That's right. Everybody starts talking north-south, and I'm talking hollers and bottoms, and it doesn't work.
And low gaps and stuff like that.
Right. So I did. I got turned around in there badly that day. Who would have guessed that little Google Maps or Google Earth from back home?
Yep.
I remember it was a long conversation trying to get us in the same place, but
we finally figured out where he was.
I finally got out of there.
That's funny. But
yeah. Back in the day, it seems like we would get, we'd all get lost all the time. At least I did.
Oh, good Lord. How do we ever do anything without technology?
I don't know. I used to get lost. I used to get lost hunting all the time, and, put a beep beep collar in my truck, leave it behind, try to use that to figure out how to get out. And then, of course, around here, half the time the beep beep's jumping off the mountains back then. And I remember walking to Geronimo one day and walking halfway up a mountain, figuring out he was on the other mountain, and that kind of stuff, coon hunting. But, oh, man, you think about, I've been doing this now for 25 or 6 years. And
2/3 of your life.
And it's been a lot of stories, It's like it never stops.
Definitely.
I was thinking when you were talking about Apache, and we when he was 9 months old, we took him up to the Ohio State hunt, and we're there at the clubhouse. All that stuff's going on, the bench shows and treeing contests. And Apache was a beautiful dog. He won the bench shows. But
he won. He was world bench champion.
Yeah. But anyway, we're up there, and Adam said. They got the coon down, they're getting ready for the treeing contest. And Adam's, at the time you were 16 years old. And he said, I'm going to take this dog up there, and he's never seen a coon before. If he'll bark at that coon, and we'll put him in the treeing contest. I said, fine. So a little bit, he comes back into the clubhouse, and with his money, he's putting him in the treeing contest. I said, he barked. He said, oh yeah, he barked. Well, he barked, when he put him in the treeing contest at 9 months old, he barked 129 barks a minute. And those guys says, nobody's going to win a treeing contest around here for the next 10 years. And he never would bark at a coon in a cage again. He won that thing at treeing contest, and then we tried him, and after that he just had no interest in a coon in a cage. None.
That's funny.
Never stayed in the circle in another treeing contest.
No, he'd just walk out. He'd go turn him loose at night. He'd go tree a coon. But
he wasn't having that cage.
No.
Well, if that's it, I thank you guys for allowing me to come and crash your morning.
Oh no, man! I'm so glad you're here, and I'm honored to talk on this thing. I listen to it all the time, like I know a whole bunch of guys do, and you get me to and from work throughout the year. But I've enjoyed all of your interviews.
Well, I appreciate it.
I love hearing about the many different sides of dog hunting that I don't think about. Everybody's got their way of doing everything. And,
exactly.
And then I listen to your podcast and I find out, a whole bunch of people are hunting a bunch of dogs that I, don't think about, don't realize how they're hunting. And it's just been a super cool for me. I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
I get excited about learning something. And, I just, every time I listen to your podcast, I'm learning something. And
I'm glad you're learning something.
Well, I really am. And, and also, it's really nice to people who I've known over the years through the computer.
Yeah.
That I recently turned off my social media because I'm being weird right now, I guess. But listening to these podcasts, it keeps me kind of connected with what's going on. I really have enjoyed that part of it. But back in the day, just kind of as a side note, when I was young and we were on Squirrel Dog Central all the time, and I never saw any of those people. I just talked to them on there all
Yeah.
the time, and most of them were living so far away you were never going to see them. And
Yep.
it's nice to now get on here without having to make a phone call to listen to a podcast and really hear somebody's story. And
Yep.
I really enjoy it. I mean, I listen to all these guys, but I especially enjoy yours. So
Well, I appreciate it.
I want to. I just kind of want to say this is me bragging on my boy, but guys tend to do that sometimes. But I just want to say that we couldn't do anything we do without somebody being as smart about learning as Adam is. It's like he's a natural born teacher, and he teaches kids, and he gets, if you ever listen to his little band, which is not a little band, or his choir, he's in a place where you would not expect great bands and great choirs to come from, but he has middle school bands and choirs that are crazy. But he's just got a sense about teaching. When he says learning, made me think of this. He's just got a sense about teaching, whether he's teaching kids or teaching dogs. I can't figure out how it's done until he tells me, and I say, "Oh my gosh, yeah! Now I understand what they're learning from what I'm doing right now." And that's why when we talked earlier about young guy gets a dog and ruins his first dog.
Yep.
It's like that same thing happened to Adam when he was young, but now I feel like that he is so tuned into what they're learning when we're doing something that he can make them. I mean, just like Crazy Horse will, he'll fetch and he'll roll over and sit and stay, and just because he just knows how to get him to do that stuff. And it's really it makes it way more fun for me just to stand back and watch the dogs learn, and watch him coach them and teach them and everything like that. And because we've been fortunate enough to get a line of dogs that's got it coming to them natural, and then just to fine tune all that little stuff is so much fun to do.
Definitely.
And I see his boys picking up on that right now, figuring out, watching him and figure out. So I feel like we'll be doing this longer than I'm able to do it.
That's great.
Which is pretty. That gives you, makes you feel good.
Definitely, yeah.
I keep making Adam make me videos, because I say one of these days, you guys are going to be going hunting, and I'm going to be watching these videos. So you're going to make me a bunch of videos so I can sit around and pretend I'm still hunting.
Well, I'll tell you, it's fun to watch my boys. Like, I will take a video of them now. They walk in the tree. They're like correcting the dog.
Yeah.
It's just funny to see
them.
them
On that tree.
right, even when the dog doesn't even need it.
Yeah,
but they're after them and trying to teach them. And somebody was talking to me the other day about training a house dog or training a pet to do little tricks. I said, what's hard to train a dog to get going and get treats somewhere?
Yep.
You can't train one to do that. And the truth is that we have been really fortunate to have, and you can't thank enough people back in the game who've bred these dogs forever. Man, I'd like to go back and shake every one of their hands, because somehow we've got these dogs that naturally do this, and it's awesome. I mean, you couldn't do anything to me that's more awesome, and anybody who takes credit for that is so ridiculous. I want to go back and shake the hand of all these guys that for years and years who have bred these dogs that we piggyback on now. And I can thank some of them. Obviously I get to thank my buddy Alan all the time, and Kenny, and all the guys that have come before that. I mean, that have done this, that have raised and trained them, but bred them smartly.
Yeah.
So that we now have.
We've always. I feel like we've always been pretty good to dole out those compliments, because early on we knew from the get-go we weren't going to breed 100 females to find the cross that was right.
Yeah.
And so early on we recognized that other people have done this before us, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to figure out which dogs naturally do what we like to do, and like you said, piggyback on other people's. I always used to say, we've ridden Franklin Thunder's coattails, for a long time, but it's not just him. That's a big deal too. And you're right. We don't deserve to take credit, for sure.
No, my goodness, I'm just hunting them, most people will find if you go take a dog and one of these dogs and you just hunt it 6 days a week, you're going to have a dog.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my experience.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to fine tune it to what suits you best. But like, you go hunt these dogs all the time, you're going to end up with a dog. And
Yep.
We try to put some of those good training tips on mountainstatekennels.com because I got people who are getting first-time puppies, and they need a lot of coaching for that kind of thing. But when they say, what is your one bit of advice? I always say, take this dog in the woods over and over again, and something good will happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very few of these dogs that you hunt for. You get them to the right age, you hunt them for a month straight, and you don't end up with something.
Adam always says, you give me 1 month with any dog, and I'll tell you whether he's worth anything or not.
Oh, yeah.
You put him in the woods, and he'll put them in the woods 25 out of those 30 days, and when that month is over, he'll tell you what they're made of.
Yep. That's great advice right there. Like, and most people either can't or won't do it. So. Yeah,
and people are all the time talking about culling dogs, and I'm, I understand where people are coming from. I don't breed every dog that I train, but far from it, because you don't see naturally what you want.
Yeah.
But the truth is that if you take a dog and hunt it for 30 days, most of the time, you're going to make a dog that somebody would be happy with. That's my experience.
Yeah.
And I know that cull means a lot of things to a lot of people, but, if I get a dog that I don't like, I try to get it to somebody that is going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time that's not too hard to do, because even one that I'm not going to breed is still going to tree a squirrel, most of them.
You're talking about that Comanche pup that treed really well, but he wouldn't go hunting, and I sold him to somebody. I said, I don't know, he just don't go hunting very far. But after that guy says, this is the best squirrel dog I ever had in my life.
Oh yeah, he totally enjoyed the dog.
I said, well, is he going hunting now? He said, no, I don't want him to. I want to walk through the woods and have him tree squirrels.
There you go.
So yeah, you're right. I mean,
that's
they don't
the style
have to,
you want.
Yeah.
Right. What's important is looking at what the dog does naturally and deciding whether you want to breed it. And man, all these guys that have clearly done that for decades upon decades, they deserve a lot of kudos. And I'm pretty nostalgic. I'm also pretty big on thanking people. I'm really into taking like guys that have helped me and that's my favorite part of this whole game is the legacy of it all.
Yeah. Man,
I hope that someday, my boys are hunting dogs that are like right now I'm hunting the 6th generation of these dogs. Mm-hmm. Man, it would be cool if my boys were hunting like the, 10th, 12th generation of these dogs. And then I could tell them about, hey, remember when Bill Ryan would take me hunting, or John Love, or those guys, and I just love it, man.
Yeah, but the sad part about that is that Geronimo and Apache will go off the side of the pedigree and they won't even show up anymore.
Well, I'll be happy when that happens.
Yeah, that's true. Me too.
That's awesome. So, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.